You're listening to the Angry Designer Podcast, where we help frustrated graphic designers crush the industry bull and share what it takes to charge what you're worth and build badass, rewarding careers.
There you go.
Oh,
there you
buddy.
go.
Okay, so now
please, let's get
time
into
to get into something good.
We'll talk later.
So if anybody, it's got to sip here. Oh, well, listen.
Wow, what a difference.
So if anybody must know what we're owing and awing about, I got tired of trying to find a bourbon replacement. You know, unfortunately, whiskey's just not cutting it. And I thought it was time to throw one back to our Shawnee boy and picked up some great scotch. We've got our 12-year-old Bowmore. Okay, Bowmore. We've had this before. And you know what? It was just, you know, their tagline is today as it was then. And it's true. It's so smoky.
Yes.
It's smoky. It's got nice oak flavor. This isn't too scotchy.
Yep.
But it's just got everything that you want and expect from a nice. I think everybody can appreciate this. No?
This absolutely. Yeah. It's not in your face like Lefroy or something like that. It's a very nice middle of the road, because it's up there. It
is up there.
I get this a lot. This is one of my go-tos when
it's nice. And I can appreciate that. And especially that smoke flavor, that heat. Yeah. It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
And scotch isn't for everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
That's for sure. But it's for people who appreciate it. Right. And Bowmore, I mean, this brand has been around since 1779. Okay.
Shit, really?
Like, it's been around forever, and they know their market, and they're not going to change, their taste. They're not going to go change the flavor profile. They know who it's for. They know they're not for everybody.
Yes.
And they're okay with that.
That's right.
And it seems like, lately a lot of people aren't okay with that. And it's getting a lot of people in shit.
Yes.
Right?
And you're not going to see Bowmore with a Scotch and Splenda mix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, here's where we're going now.
Looking for reduced sugar. You can have Bowmore.
Put some Splenda in there.
Bowmore fits. And then they put extra caffeine and call it Bowmore Max.
Yes.
Well, and it's true. This is, and I think that some shit needs to be said.
Whoa.
And again, because the problem is, I've seen a lot of brand fuck ups lately over the past few years of huge brand fuck ups.
Yes.
And I'm shocked at this, but I'm seeing a reoccurring trend, not just from there, but even from designers, where it's like, it seems like they have a complete disregard for the end user, for their customer's customer.
Right.
And it's getting brands fucking huge. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yes.
But I mean, even like from the design sense, it's like nobody ever mentions the customers anymore, ever.
Yes.
Okay. Like, nobody ever stops to think, hey, what does the end user want?
Right.
It seems like, and not there, but, and even we at times are focused so much on the person who's paying the bill and what do they want.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's the problem. That's what's getting people in shit here.
Yeah.
Right.
These three that you have, you're absolutely right. Nobody thought of the end user.
I know, right? And that's the whole thing, right?
Yes.
Our customer might be paying for the work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're not the ones using the work. They're not the ones who we are creating our designs for.
Yes.
And this is something that nobody talks about, maybe because it's not sexy, maybe because it's something that people don't want to admit, or maybe it slows people down. But, lately we've been talking about the importance of strategy and to put strategy first before design. Okay. Think first, don't just jump in and start designing and shit. Right. Well, one of the most important strategic things that nobody really mentions, is the end user.
Start at the end.
Nobody ever, even, I hate this. Okay. But even with this word persona. Okay. I fucking hate this. I fucking blame the UXers for this. The UX designers, persona is your fault. Because what happens is we've now gotten rid of the human component and given it a name.
Yes.
It's the persona. Fuck the persona. Who is the end user, right? This is the most important thing. Like if you go online, right, all the logo processes that we see, it's all like Flash. It's all like design porn. It's like, oh, look. He's going to show us how to lay out the logo. He's going to show us about proportions. Oh, look, when I start my logo, I, do mood boards and this and that. Like, this is all a bunch of shit, right? Word mapping, sketching. Like, nobody ever starts with the end user, okay? They always focus on what looks great first.
Right.
And I think it's getting a lot of people in trouble because design starts and ends with the end user. But people seem to forget this.
That's right.
And not just designers.
Yeah.
But we're talking giant billion-dollar fucking brands seem to forget this.
Yeah.
People seem to be focused on trends, on hot topics, cultural phenomena for now, whatever you want to call it, political bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other designers.
Other designers.
That's the worst.
Which fucking drives me nuts. But the thing is, the work that we're doing isn't for us. Sure as fucking hell isn't for other designers.
No.
Okay. And in fact, it's not even for our customers. It's for our customers' customers.
Exactly.
And we need to start putting them first. Right. And then again, it's hard for the customer then in that case to balk at that. And if they do, then they're dealing with their own ego issues and so be it. Yeah. Right. But the thing is, if you don't know who your audience is for the project that you're working on, okay, well, then you're not actually designing. You are decorating. Okay. And that's honestly, the shit that we see online is proof of all this, right? All the logo design videos always start with flash and pretty and cool. Even all the AI bullshit we see, right? It's always typed in on just what's hip and what's now and what's cool, not what actually resonates with the customer. Yeah. This is something that I think we do well here.
Yes.
Our logos are often boring, right? Because, we're a B2B market. And, our logos oftentimes, they serve a purpose.
Yes, they're effective.
They're effective, right? They have to be quick, clear, they don't always have to be sexy. When we have the opportunity.
Then we will.
Then we have fun.
And generally, too, our first initial presentation to the clients, there will be some funkier ones in there, right? But they don't have a hope in hell.
Oftentimes that Hail Mary doesn't.
But at least you get to do it and you understand.
Right? and it's fine, and it's our niche. And I'm okay with never being a Lincoln design. Okay, I will live vicariously for our buddy Dan and never be Dan, unfortunately. But the thing is, it's like there's so much emphasis put on the design portion. There's so much rushing put towards the design portion that nobody seems to be paying enough attention to the end user or the customer's customer. Yeah. And again, not just designers, but giant brands. It's getting companies in so much fucking hell. They're losing billions of dollars in this.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
All right, designers, let's cut the bull. How many times have you had a killer website design only to watch it fall apart because of code or developer telling you no? Or maybe you've held back from web design altogether thinking it's just too complicated and too technical or totally out of your wheelhouse. Either way, it's time for a change. Wix Studio is designed for designers, removing the barriers that limits your designs. Whether you're tired of developers watering down your ideas or too intimidated by the technical side of web, Wix Studio puts the creative power back in your hands. No code required. With a drag and drop interface that feels designer intuitive, plus no code animations and even AI powered tools, you can create fully custom websites that match your vision. Every pixel, every detail. And if you're worried about the learning curve, don't be. Wix Studio is designed to feel as intuitive as your favorite design tools. Some designers here even say more so. That means you can jump right in and focus on what you do best. Designing badass, brand-aligned websites that'll take your business to the next level. So whether you've had enough of developers holding you back or you're ready to finally step into web design, check out wixstudio.com and take control. That's wixstudio.com. Go and take back web design for graphic designers.
Just the past 2 years,
Yeah.
okay, we've had 3 giant brand flops. Okay, so number one,
Muscle.
everybody has heard about the fucking Bud Light fiasco. Okay, like we're talking billions of dollars here. Okay, so and this was, the audience backfire on this. Okay, so what they were trying to do is they tried to reposition the brands. Okay, with an influencer campaign, and it got them in trouble. I'm okay. I don't care about what they were, the hearts and I mean, that's fine. I don't care about that. That's not what this is about. But the thing is, they completely ignored their core customer. Okay. And what they thought of it. Okay. And their, impression of this.
Yeah.
And, if that was their intent to be like, fuck you, our current customers, we want to go for something. Well, then they succeeded.
Then they did that. Yeah.
Because that's exactly, there was better ways to reach. If in fact they wanted to reach, a more sensitive market or a more inclusive market, or they wanted to reach more women, there probably would have been better. They could have chosen someone like Danica Patrick,
right?
Like everybody, guys, girls in their core market would have been like, hell yeah. Right. Because again, strong woman, but no. They had something they pushed further, and they weren't actually thinking about the consequences or the reaction it would have with their end users.
Yes.
Okay. Huge problem. So the intention might have been well placed, but the execution was wrong because they weren't thinking about, the consequences of their actions. And, does the audience actually give that much a shit? Well, sure enough, the audience did.
They did. Did they ever recover from that?
Well, apparently they are climbing back up again. Okay. They've come up with new campaigns. Okay. They've got new spokespeople. They've got a couple really banging country singers. I think Post Malone actually.
Oh, really?
I think. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But regardless, the reality here is the lesson to be learned from their mistake, right? And, I went through this one is you can't alienate your base audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all right to to go and reach somewhere else and reach for new customers as well.
Right.
Right. But when we're talking about your brand, you need to evolve your brand with intention. Okay. You can't try to disrupt your existing brand.
Yeah.
Okay. Your existing core customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Bud Light fiasco, real big fuck up.
That was huge.
Okay. HBO is another one. Okay. HBO has been going through such such an identity crisis. Okay. Like if anybody doesn't know, okay, HBO went from HBO to HBO Go, okay, to HBO Now, to HBO Max. And then they thought, well, that's too much to say. So let's drop the HBO and just go with Max.
The identifying part. Yeah.
Got rid of that. Well, and again, what happened is, when they dropped HBO to just Max,
people were like,
within 1 quarter, 1 year, like not even a year, 1 quarter, 3 fucking months, they lost almost 2 million subscribers.
Oh, shit.
Okay. Like vanished.
Right.
Okay. They actually had the balls to try this for the whole fucking year. By the end of the year, it was almost 2.5 million subscribers. Gone.
Oh,
okay. And it wasn't that they were, it's just, I don't think that anybody hated what they were doing, but they were just confused as fucking hell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because again, HBO, number one, I don't even know why they started going down this road. HBO was, when I think of HBO, I think of awesome shows like Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Or Silicon Valley.
Exactly.
One of my favorite shows ever. Okay. There's something great about this. But what started happening is they started focusing less on their customers, what their customers wanted, and they started focusing on the shows and the network, and they're being more bottom line driven than giving the end users what they were looking for.
Yeah.
So needless to say, they went back. Okay. They did go back.
So it's HBO Max now.
Yeah. Now it's back to Max. They brought the HBO back.
Yeah.
Which is fucking genius, guys. Wow.
How much did that cost?
But again, if there's a lesson here, is if the brand, when the name is actually part of the brand
and so identifiable like that.
So identifiable, right?
Yes.
Don't fucking mess with it. Just don't.
Leave it there.
Leave it. It might not be sexy. just leave it.
But I like HBO Max.
I don't
think.
understand. And I didn't care about HBO Max. That's fine.
It makes sense what they want to do. They want to park
statement.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
He was like, ooh, let's add in Max. Let's just amp up HBO. But regardless, you can't drop the HBO.
No, you cannot. That's
right?
Yeah, that's your ticket.
Yeah. And and then the third company, which is the most recent one, is Jaguar's huge flop. Okay.
Right.
So this was so huge. There were so many designers online throwing this out there. I didn't even go there. I wanted to do a video, give my opinion, but we were flooded with like 1,000. Okay. But guess what? Jaguar has now come public and been like, we fucked up.
Oh, they owned it up.
This has all happened in the past couple of weeks. They owned it. They've come forward. They're like, yeah, we fucked up on this. We're firing the agency as though that was enough.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go back to our roots, which is ridiculous. But if anybody knows, they also rebranded the company. They weren't making it about cars, which is weird because Jaguar is a car.
Yes.
But they were making it a
lifestyle.
brand about inclusivity and modernity.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't even about the car anymore.
Right,
it was about a statement.
The vibe. Yeah.
And it was so absurd that nobody got it.
Yeah.
They forgot who their market was. Their market were, older, influential, affluent people, right? Yeah. Like when you think of Jaguar, you think of, your grandparents who had money or Johnny's grandparents who are rich or, this is what comes to mind with Jaguar.
Yes.
And again, this is not the target market that when they see these bright, glamorous, super pink clothing and the crazy hair, and there wasn't even a car in the video.
There's no car in the video.
They fucking even dropped the Jaguar icon.
Oh, no.
Which was the most, it was the most, in my opinion, next to the Stallion, it was like the most recognizable car icon.
Big time.
Okay. So again, the buyers from Jaguar, they wanted prestige. They wanted power. What they got were like a bunch of models that were dressed, not like men, not like women, but kind of something completely out there and standing for everything but a car itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Like they could have just been a completely flat brand. Needless to say, it tanked. It tanked, and they've come back.
So much so that they've said they actually admitted
how bad that
they
was.
Fucked it up,
right? Because again, nobody knew what the hell was going on. So the lesson here is they were trying to fake values that weren't reflective of the actual company. Right. So you need to align the messaging with the real audience, and their expectations, and especially in this case, the brand's DNA.
Yes. Yes. Okay? The DNA.
So here's the thing. I know, right?
That's it. Those three things. Yeah. The DNA of the brand.
Exactly, right? So here, I think all three of these were when strategists, branders, the designers, of course. I'm sure there was other layers of fuck up, of course, and because nobody wanted to speak against any of this shit that was going on. But the reality here is I think they all got too caught up in current affairs, what was hot, what was it, and I don't want to say that it's hip to be inclusive, right? Well, that's just being human. But there was such a bandwagon on it and attention on it, and I think they were trying to capitalize on the worst part or what they felt were the best parts, but by alienating their core audience. It backlashed. A complete backfired to them.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, especially for if you're going to have a car ad and there's no cars in it. I mean, Jaguar is a pretty up there brand, but still.
It used to be. I mean, the cars were shit. They're not reliable.
Were they? Oh, okay.
No, I mean, they weren't reliable. Yeah. The cars had so many, so the funny thing is, it's like, in my opinion, some of the most beautiful cars in history were Jaguars.
Yeah.
Beautifully designed. And the brand stood for so much. But the funny thing is, the cars itself, the product wasn't very great.
Very good.
It wasn't reliable. It wasn't really known for, crazy horsepower handling, but it was known for prestige.
Oh my God.
And that's the thing. People bought them because they were prestigious. They stood for something. And apparently it's prestigious to have your car in the shop once a month.
Yeah.
And, apparently that's part of this whole allure. But that's the thing, right? And,
that goes even more to this fuck up then. If you're not even putting out a good product, but still people, your brand is up there.
Yeah. And I think that was the intent.
Why would they do that?
Yeah, it was pretty nasty. Honestly, it's like, it's hard to try to figure out. I can't speak for why brand strategists at this caliber, marketing people at this caliber, CMOs at this caliber would make these choices.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that because I'm not at that game, but I can speak to why designers tend to alienate the end user. Okay. And I did, right?
Bringing it home.
First and foremost, and I hate to say this, we've always been trained to kiss the customer's ass. Plain and simple. We don't want to fight them. We don't want to argue with them. And, unfortunately, that will never work to us being the expert if all we are yes men. I can't fucking stand
I know. You're definitely not that. You will call out a client if they are wrong.
To my detriment, and sometimes but it's true, right?
Yeah.
We can't, but this is one of the reasons why, we don't lose sight of who the end user is.
Yep.
Design schools. Okay.
Oh.
They teach us how to make things look good, how to make things, they work on our principles, but never really focus on the real world and the end user. Okay. Because again, they're teaching us the technical skills and layout and design and principles. Not once do they really focus on let's dig deep into the end user. Portfolios are often built to impress other designers. Okay. When you, and I mean, again, go online and you can see, okay, Behance, Dribble, all these fucking platforms are not for end users. They're not for customers.
Yeah.
Okay. They're for other designers to go in, upvote you. Dribble, you can't even get an account on Dribble unless another designer refers you.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
so right there, it's proof. It's not even for the customer.
Not for the customer,
this purely for ego.
Wow.
I hate that.
Yes.
I hate that.
That is brutal.
Unfortunately, the feedback that we get often comes from, the guy writing the check, not necessarily the person who's going to see the design or experience it on a daily basis, right?
Damn it.
Obviously, we talk about this all the time. Designers often chase trends. They don't necessarily do homework.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not very sexy. So it's easy to just kind of be overlooked. Though again, I've talked about this word personas, and I hate this buzzword because, it's like, how do you make a human less human?
Yeah.
Come up with a fucking name, and let's not make it about the end user. Let's make it about a persona.
Even the name sounds pretentious, doesn't it?
Does it?
Yeah. Persona.
UXers, I tell you. Of course, we're rushed, we're underpaid.
Yeah.
Right? And but the thing is, even if we're rushed and underpaid, this is that one thing that shouldn't be skipped.
This is true. This is true.
Skip the word mapping, in my fucking opinion, right? Skip the mood boards if you have to.
There you go.
You need to obsess about that end user. Yeah. Otherwise, everything you're doing is for what? It's for vanity.
Yep.
It's for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
And for all you know, it's not going to be on mark.
Yeah.
And of course,
it's a shame.
I hate to say this, but sometimes we completely skip the end user to feed our own ego. We see something hot and we're like, you know what?
I got to use that.
I got to use that.
Yes.
And we're all guilty of this.
Yes, I know. I did that a lot in my early career. Yes.
And
guilty, shame-filled.
Honestly, in situations like this, the validation of being like, I can do it. I can design something that looks kind of like Alan Peters' life, as opposed to, but the customer doesn't like it. And the end user, it's completely wrong for.
Yes.
But I did something that I got inspired from our buddy, Alan Peters.
That's right.
Love you, Alan. It's nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you.
No.
But honestly, I think ultimately what it comes down to is nobody ever really taught us on, to give a shit about the end user.
Yes.
Okay. It's so far, it's so far removed from everything that we've been taught. We're still doing on a daily basis. Nobody ever talks about it. But in all fairness, like I said, design starts and ends with the end user. It's probably the most important part of the whole strategy session. Okay. And so again, when we're talking about evolving to strategy-led designers, guys, we have to pay attention to, the end user, right? The end user, because that's what design is about. To make the end user's life better.
Yes.
Not to make our customers' life better.
Nope. Not to make your portfolio better.
To make your portfolio look any better. To make the end user's life better.
Yes.
All right.
Wow.
So, I kind of came up with some ideas here. Okay. How to design for the right audience. Okay. So these are some things very high level. Okay. That I think people need to just kind of remember, re-embrace, kind of get back into things. Right. And again, there's nothing, brainiac like here. These are all really basic, right? Like, first and foremost, you have to ask the most important question, right? Who exactly is this job for?
Yes.
When you get a job from a customer, you're not going to be frowned upon if, you ask the customer,
what are we doing here?
Who is this for?
Yeah.
I know this isn't for you, Sean.
Yeah.
Okay. You brought me here. Who's your customer, Sean?
Yes.
Tell me about your customer. What do you know? Good opportunity. If they're like, well, I don't really know my customer. Guess what?
Yeah.
Cha-ching. Because then it's like,
I'm going to go find out.
I'm going to find out for you.
And I'm going to charge you.
All of a sudden, this discovery process just got bigger.
Exactly.
Because that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
You need to learn about their values. You need to learn about the problems that they have, the languages they speak, the cultural languages they speak, not just the actual ethnicity, right? But like their street slang, their terms, their nuances, what their emotional drivers are, okay? Like, and again, it's your job to understand these people and know exactly, what makes them tick.
Yes.
Because you need to connect with them, not with your customer.
Yes.
And all the better reason, right? When, you go and pitch. Remember the movie, remember Mad Men?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They never talk about the customer. They never talk about the customer's product.
Nope.
Right? He's always pitching about the woman at the end, at the end of the day, she's been busy all day. She is unappreciated. She needs to feel like a champ.
Yes.
Right? And your product does that
will
for
do
her.
that for her.
It makes her feel like a...
Yeah.
Boom.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
And it's been lost, okay?
Yes.
Honestly, if you can't talk to the audience, which is very often the case, right? Like, because again, focus groups, not often very... correct.
Hit and miss. Yeah.
Right. And, and oftentimes I find from focus groups, they don't actually really give you the real answer. They give you what they think you want to hear or what makes them sound smart. They don't actually be honest. So it's okay if you actually don't have the ability to talk to the audience. Okay. ChatGPT is fucking great.
Yes.
For this. You can research the hell out of this. Okay. Yeah. And if not for Chat, there's lots of ways online before Chat that we used to research customers, right? We used to dig deep and who are the end users? What are their likes? What turns them on at night? What makes them get scared? What makes them happy, right? Yeah. You have the ability now with all the tools that we have to research the hell of this end user and come up with a profile that you are going to design to connect with them. Okay.
Yeah.
So then this way, when you're designing, you design with them in mind. Okay. Not what the industry says is cool, not with the recommendations of what the customer says. You need to go in with a solid plan of what you're designing and why, based on the data that you're providing, based on what you found out about the end user. Because think about it, your customer, unless they know their customer better than you, which is nice if they do.
That's great, but that's not always the case.
Not always the case, right? How do they argue with you, right? They might not like ducks, but their end user might like
certainly
ducks.
likes them,
For a change, right? Ultimately, you just need to learn how to speak their language, just visually, okay? And make sure that what you're designing connects with them first, not necessarily with the customer, and definitely not for your fucking other designer friends, because that's the worst place to go, okay?
That's so bad. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. And it happens all the time.
Yes, it's terrible. Oof.
For the record, I am glad that Bowmore has not rebranded for some sort of inclusive reason. To people who have a more broader palette and they want to include everybody else, not just the people who appreciate good Scotch, good peat. I appreciate that. All right.
Yes. Thank you, Bowmore.
All right. Just a couple last points here.
Okay.
Some red flags I wanted to leave with people. So red flags that you're actually not designing for the audience. And you know what? These are pretty straightforward. I think these are kind of like no guff. Okay. But I mean, again, if you're designing for what you think looks cool, okay, not necessarily what works.
Yep.
That's a red flag.
That's a big red flag. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Again, because this
Stop.
isn't about you.
Yes, it's not. Yeah, you're right.
If you start looking to behance instead of customer behavior and customer tastes, kind of a red flag.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
If you're avoiding, ugly designs, but that might actually convert better, boom. Okay.
Yes.
I hate to say this.
Yeah.
This is a real thing. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but years ago, we created this awesome landing page. And the whole point of this landing page was to get leads, insurance leads for the customer. The page was beautiful. It looked credible. It looked, like professional.
Yep.
And I was just like, this is good. It was only converting like in small percentage points, very small, under 5%. It was converting.
Wow.
Somebody inside that company ripped off some web page somewhere, slapped together a landing page. It looked hokey. It looked bad. It looked cheap. It was converting almost 5 times more than ours was.
What?
In the end, we didn't do our research.
Yep.
The target market wasn't people who had money, who were affluent. It was people who were like bankrupt, people who had bad credit. And if the page looked too good, they didn't even bother applying because they knew they were going to get rejected. But when they see something that looks shady and is going to give them a deal and give them
there's a trust factor
there.
It's like Wikipedia, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like they have
the whole thing,
that shit site that they have, but they keep it like that just to,
unintentionally, right?
Yeah, it's intentionally to do that. Interesting.
I know.
Wow. So did you end up going with their page?
Ugly look?
Yeah.
No, we lost the job.
Oh.
In the end, we got paid and they never used this again. Oh. They're like, we're just going to get our guy Bob here to create them all.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. That's a whole other topic altogether. But yeah. If, red flag, if you're chasing trends, without actually asking, why am I designing it like this? Okay, you got to step back and figure out what are my intentions with every single design that I'm doing, right? And most importantly, a red flag is if you are folding to your customers' opinions, okay, that completely contradict the audience insights that you have,
know,
okay, and what you've learned, but because they might be a strong-willed CEO, they might be a marketing person with their own ego in check, okay? This is a red flag that this might not actually work out the way you want it to.
Right.
So just, what, every brand flops, okay, when they forget about who their core customer is.
Right.
This doesn't mean that brands can't expand into new markets. It doesn't mean that brands can't, expand into new audiences, but you can't neglect your existing core audience. And if 80% of your audience likes something that's A, you can't all of a sudden turn something upside down and offer them B and expect that they're going to follow.
They're going to love it
because of your brand loyalty. Remember Cherry Coke?
Yeah.
And how much of a disaster that was. Okay. So again, big mistakes happen, right?
Yeah.
Again, this isn't about the client. This isn't about the client. This isn't about shareholders. Okay. This isn't even about, the customers. This is about the end
past
user.
the customer. Yes.
Okay. And it is because sometimes the customer, which is maybe the parent buying the toy, is delivering that toy to somebody else who's an end user. Okay. This is who it's about. It's about actually the end user. You need to find ways to use your superpowers to connect with the end user.
Yes.
And this always starts with research on that customer. Find out their likes, find out everything. Because again, stop trying to design for approval. Okay. Your customer's approval, your friend's approval, and start designing for that end user and to reach them and impact, because honestly, that will get the customer results and that'll get them coming back to you. They can always go and recreate something that looks better elsewhere if they don't like what you're proposing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to perform better. And that's the most important thing. And people will remember that, right?
Yeah.
Because honestly, if the customer, if the end user doesn't feel or connect with what you're designing for them, well, then unfortunately your design is irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. And the only way you're going to do that is if you research your end user first. Okay. Start with your customer first and end with your customer.
Right.
Okay. So design starts with the customer and ends with the customer.
Oh yeah.
Jeez. That's the whole thing. This whole conversation
was just summed up that way.
Just summed up that, okay? Design starts and ends with the end user.
This could have been a 10-second podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, fair enough. But then I wouldn't have been able to enjoy this bow more, okay?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that is absolutely, this is one of those things that we overlook a lot. And I'm guilty of it, you know.
I'm guilty of it
I
too.
think the customer, the main customer, our customer is right and they know what they're doing. Not always.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Dig a little deeper.
You need to do your own homework.
Yeah.
You know, and that discovery phase,
Yeah.
there's so many other, again, if I see another fucking, oh, this is how I start my logo project. I do word maps and come up with fancy syllables. And what are images that, you think about when you think of your brand? What about your customer?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Again, the CMO might be all about A, but the customer might be a completely different. They might be about B or C.
Exactly.
And again,
it's worth exploring.
It's our job, because as designers, our job is to focus on that end user, not necessarily the customer.
Yeah.
And that isn't doing the customer any sort of disservice.
Exactly.
We need to remember that. It's our job to step up and remind the customer, I get that this is what you want, but is it what your customer wants?
Right.
Is this in fact, relate to your customer? So this is the most important thing that I think is so overlooked in our space.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're right. This is something that sometimes gets forgotten and lost in the sauce, which is unfortunate.
Lost in the sauce.
Oh, I stole
That's a
that
good
from
one.
somewhere.
Oh, that's a good one though. Being Italian, tomato sauce.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Woo, that was good, man.
Okay, buddy. Well, I think that's it. I think we're off now to a good weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. My name is Massimo.
And my name is Sean.
Stay creative
And stay angry.
Peace.